Hello to everyone, and welcome back to the Church of Christ of Lake County Facebook page. We appreciate you coming back for another daily post in Proverbs. It's February the 15th, so we will be in chapter 15. We're going to be looking at the first three verses, and after reading these verses, we're going to jump over to the book of Judges because we're actually going to use an illustration from the Old Testament to make proper application for ourselves today. So a lot of jumping around, so I hope you have your Bibles ready as we'll be putting the passages on the screen, but we still want people to use their Bibles, their own Bibles, so they can do some finger practice and turning to these pages. So Proverbs 15, verses 1 through 3. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. The tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. Now, we've dealt with a previous proverb and use of the tongue, but we're wanting to continue with this idea, seeing as how this is a major problem that goes on throughout, not only in churches, but just throughout the community. And I mean, even as we're seeing it in politics right now, in the midst of a great deal of uproar, these individuals that are supposed to be adults and leading our country, there's not a lot of wisdom being used when it comes to how they are using this tool of the tongue. Now, what we're wanting to start by emphasizing is verse 3, how that after we have this mentioning of using the tongue properly, soft answer turneth away wrath, grievous words stir up anger. Verse 3 says, the eyes of the Lord are in every place. The eyes of the Lord, he sees and he hears how we are using our words, beholding the evil and the good. So things, if we use our tongue properly, that's for the good, and those are things that are going to be laid to our account. But even those things that are evil, we need to take note of the fact that, okay, God is watching and listening as to how I use my tongue. So as we're saying, the tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright. We will think and be able to properly give a answer that is adequate to deal with the situation. Now, oftentimes, what ends up happening is when individuals get into a bit of strife or there's a bit of turmoil that goes on, we end up going tit for tat. You say something negative towards me, then I end up retaliating, and even then, the argument, the conversation is not even anything that needs to be argued, but a person that is not using wisdom, not using knowledge when it comes to the tongue, they will see an argument and they'll just say, okay, you want to argue? Then let's argue. If we can turn away from just these frivolous arguments, then we need to try to do that. And that's where a soft answer is going to come in. So here's where the example comes in. Here's where the illustration. Judges chapter 8, and we're going to start in verse 1. The men of Ephraim said unto him, why hast thou served us thus, that thou calledst us not when thou wentest to fight with the Midianites? And they did chide with him sharply. Now the him that is in this section is going to be Gideon, as you can see right here in verse 4. Gideon has just gone to battle against the great host of the Midianites, and you read this in chapter 7. In chapter 7 is where you have Gideon going out with his men to battle against the Midianites, and God steps in and says, Gideon, your army's too big. So you have the two separate occasions where God ends up saying, okay, we're gonna cut your forces down. We're gonna send some of your men home so that it doesn't turn into a situation where you all get to glory in your fleshly arm of strength, but I will get the glory, and that I am delivering unto you this great host of Midian with your small number inside of your army. So right here, we're getting a glimpse of the misunderstanding. Here's Ephraim, and they're asking Gideon, why didn't you call us when you went out to fight against the Midianites? So you see, they are missing a piece of information as to what was happening. They are missing the piece where God is in fact already cutting down Gideon's armies. So that's why he did not call them. But look at this. They did chide with him sharply. They are coming looking for an argument. Now here's where a soft answer, and here's where knowledge and use of the tongue comes in on the part of Gideon. And he said unto them, here's Gideon, here's his answer. What have I done now in comparison of you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God hath delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb, and what was I able to do in comparison of you? Now you go back to chapter 7, and we'll look at it very quickly because it's right here at the end of the chapter. So here in verse 23, the men of Israel gathered themselves together out of Naphtali and out of Asher and out of all of Manasseh, and pursued after the Midianites. And Gideon sent messengers throughout all Mount Ephraim. So there's the Ephraimites, saying, Come down against the Midianites, and take before them the waters unto Bethbara and Jordan. Then all the men of Ephraim gathered themselves together, and took the waters unto Bethbara and Jordan, and they took 2 princes of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeb, and they slew Oreb upon the rock Oreb, and Zeb they slew at the winepress of Zeb, and pursued Midian, and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon on the other side of Jordan. So here is this event that the Ephraimites are actually involved in, and it's their own battle. Gideon has called them. They go to battle, and they have this huge success. They chase down the 2 princes of Midianites, and they slew them, and then they bring back the heads back to Oreb and Zeb. But what do the Ephraimites want to do? They then want to argue with Gideon. Well, why didn't you call us when you fought against the Midianites? You should be happy with what you've already accomplished. Why are you wanting to get into this argument? Why are you wanting to chide sharply because I didn't call you in the first hand, and on top of that, Gideon did not have the authority to call them in that first skirmish. Instead of getting into the argument, instead of dealing with that, look again what Gideon does. What have I done now in comparison of you? You've slain these 2 princes. The gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer. God hath delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb. What was I able to do in comparison of you? And look at what that does. Then their anger was abated toward him when he had said that. A soft answer turneth away wrath. Instead of getting into Gideon's feelings, here he is leading these armies. Instead of getting into his own feelings and begin to, chide back at them sharply. Well, who are you to question me? I'm the one that's in charge here. So on and so forth. He does not even do that. Gideon realizes there's a misunderstanding. Here's how you're going to deal with it. You esteem, and this is Philippians chapter 2, so let's go to that very quickly. Here's what Paul would have to say on the situation. If there be therefore any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any bowels of mercy, fulfill ye my joy, that ye be like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory. But how are we to do it? In lowliness of mind, notice this, let each esteem other better than themselves. That's exactly what Gideon did. He looked at Ephraim instead of saying, well, okay, Ephraim, let me tell you how the cow ate the cabbage. Here's why I didn't call you. He doesn't even get into that because there's no point in it. What he does do is he builds them up, and by saying, brethren, and they are brethren in the flesh, they're all Israel, brethren, what have I done that's in comparison to you? We're both fighting the war. We're both fighting battles. We're both gaining victories. God is delivering these things into our hands. Why quarrel with one another? Why start fighting with one another? Esteem others better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Paul again would say in 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 12, and labor, working with our hands, notice this, being reviled, we bless. Being persecuted, we suffer. Being defamed, we entreat. We are made as the filth of the world, and are the offscouring of all things unto this day. Here's Ephraim, they're coming to Gideon, and they're starting to revile. They chide with him sharply. And what does Gideon do? Gideon does not turn around and revile them right back. Instead, he gives a blessing. What am I able to do that's in comparison to you? And that's the problem. We start comparing ourselves with ourselves. And again, in the Corinthian letter, Paul says, to do so is foolish. If we want to go along peacefully with our brethren, we need to be able to, in proper times, in realizing, you know what? This is an argument that I'm not needing to get into, that I'm not needing to start. And if I can stop the argument before it starts, then I need to try to do that. Soft answers turn away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. You want to start using grievous words, start chiding, reviling back with them, then guess what you're going to produce? You're not going to produce peace. You're just going to bring more anger into the situation, and you're going to start biting and devouring one another. And as we are seeing a country that's divided against itself, individuals need to come together and try to reason together, use knowledge, use wisdom, use proper words, so that we can try to bring together this nation. But also, even within the church, we lose sight of the fact we're all brethren, we're all on the same side. And just because there's a misunderstanding on a situation or something that arises does not, and somebody comes to me hostilely, I do not need to in turn return hostility for hostility. A soft answer, a soft word, turneth away wrath. Again, we appreciate all of those that are tuning in to our Facebook page for these daily dives or daily posts into Proverbs. If you like this information, then be sure to leave a like at the bottom here, and be sure to share it with others so they can join in on this time of study in Proverbs. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section. And we look forward to seeing you back here again tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.